November 22nd.
I hereby call to order this meeting of the Triton Regional School Committee on December 11th, 2024 at 7 p.m. I'm Linda Lukowski, Chair of the School Committee. I want to welcome everybody here tonight. A reminder, this meeting is being audio and video recorded. I'm going to read our vision statement. We are a community of learners known for our unwavering commitment to meeting the needs of all students. Through the adoption of best practices and our active partnership with families and the wider community who are united in supporting the development of engaged, successful, responsible, resilient learners, students will be well prepared to be ethical, empathetic, and contributing citizens. Can we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? We are waiting for our Student of the Month, so when the Student of the Month appears, we will go back. The next item is oral communications from the public. Members of the public may address the committee for up to 3 minutes, longer with the permission of the chairperson. The committee will not engage in a discussion on topics raised during public comment, but may choose to add the topic to a future agenda. This agenda segment will be limited to 15 minutes. Are there any members of the public who wish to address the committee?
I just want to say you guys did a really good job. Michael Colburn, 5 Caitlin Circle, Salisbury, Mass.
The next item is the consent agenda. The consent agenda contains 3 donations tonight. Thank you to Susan Manser Taleb for a donation of $2,500 to help cover the Washington, D.C. trip costs for the middle school students, and to Raymond Nuaz for $2,500 to support the high school DECA team. And thank you also to the Institution for Savings for $2,000 for the robotics team. The consent agenda does not include any requests for planning or final trip approvals this month. Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? The next item is new business. Oh, never mind. The next item is student representative. Sorry, Owen.
No worries. In the next couple of weeks, I have some plans, along with Mr. Kelly, to meet with a bunch of the students in the high school to get a better idea of the student body's feeling on, the building and the budget talks going forwards. If the students have any ideas on the budget, but outside of that, I'm sure the building discussions are going to be more illustrative. But outside of that, I'm happy to report that Spirit Week was a success in the high school, and that the general reception to the removal of midterms in the high school has been positive. Big surprise. And that there's been a number of teacher absences because of sickness, but that is as to be expected in the winter. And other than that, things have been going well.
Thank you, Owen. Does anybody have any questions for Owen? The next item is new business. Would any members like to raise additional items for inclusion on a future agenda? Seeing none. The DCC update. The District Communication Committee met at Salisbury Town Hall on November 14th. Unfortunately, only town officials from Salisbury and Newbury were able to attend, but there was a lengthy discussion about the MCAS ballot question, curriculum improvements, and the facilities work. As is traditional, there is no December DCC meeting, so the next meeting will be January 23rd at Rowley Town Hall. The next item is the student services update.
Thank you. So I just wanted to give you an update on what we've been doing in the area of student services. I know you all received a copy of what I wrote up, so is this working? So I'll just kind of go through some of the points for the write-up. We are implementing the new IEP this year. Last year, we started training, and Joelle Coleman and Christine Lyman did most of our training with all staff last year and parents. We did 2 parent trainings, 1 in person and 1 virtual. So this year, we're moving into, as an IEP comes up, if it's an annual or reevaluation, depending on what comes first, we roll that over into the new form. So it's been, the IEP meetings are a bit longer, but it's a good way for the parents to become familiar with the form and for staff that are working with the students. We continue to offer professional development. We've done some goal writing. We've focused on specific parts of the IEP. So we'll continue that throughout the year. And then next year, you know, as the year's moving forward, we'll still continue to focus on areas of special education, but this year it's been like all of the PD has been taken up for the new IEP. So hopefully next year we can get the special ed teachers back into the professional development with their general education teachers and just focus, do a few PDs to keep up with the new IEP. The special ed staff has been amazing with really spending a lot of time rolling this new IEP over. When Aspen dumped it into the new IEP, everything didn't dump into where it should. So at each new IEP, at each annual, they have to go through, move things, they have to, you know, update everything, move all the accommodations. So it is a lot of work, and they're doing a great job, and we're learning together. Joelle and I have worked to meet with staff just to talk through things, to kind of get their view on why things were placed in different areas. So the collaboration has been amazing, and everyone has been so great with the feedback, like, thank you for meeting with me, and I've just been really happy with that. So I'm thankful for that, because I hear that it's been different, very difficult in other districts, so I have to say that our staff has been wonderful. We are also in the midst of doing a program evaluation for our TLC program, which is the Triton Learning Center at Newbury Elementary School. We have a TLC program at each level. So we started with the one at Newbury Elementary School. Last year in the spring, we had an outside evaluator come in and do an evaluation of the program. We also had the TLC staff do a self-assessment of the program. This year, we came together as a team. We looked at both areas, and we came up with areas of strength for the program and areas that we need to develop. So through this information, we are now developing a plan which is going to focus on the areas of professional development, family engagement, which will include sending out a survey to families about the program, curriculum and assessment, IEP development, and staffing. So that plan will be a 3-year plan, and each year we're focusing on those areas to strengthen those areas. We also did this year a program evaluation we're in the process of doing it for our multilingual learners. So our EL program, as you know, the numbers are getting larger each year, and I meet with the EL staff usually every 2 months, and there's just so many more needs than there were before. So we used a self-assessment, and our program fell in the area of developing program, which indicated that while the program has a foundational elements in place, significant gaps require attention to ensure a more effective and equitable experience for EL students. So then through that, we identified what areas that we need to focus on. And again, the plan that we come up with is going to focus on family engagement, professional development, and more effective assessments for progress monitoring and just assessing our multilingual learners. We were able to, Anna helped us to partner with Amesbury to get Title III funding. So we were able to get Title III funding, which we're sharing with Amesbury, and we have to work together to identify how we want to use that funding. So that funding will be used to help us with these areas, to strengthen these areas. So yeah, thank you, Anna, for kind of starting that process for us. And then the Title IX, the new regulations started in August 1st. So the staff who are responsible for investigating Title IX had comprehensive training over the summer, and all staff were trained in Title IX. We're still learning as Title IX issues come up. We're learning together. The investigators and I work together to follow the process. And then program consultation is happening. So we brought in an outside person, an outside consultant to consult with our BCBAs, our early childhood coordinator, and our special education coordinator. And the idea is we want to get more consistency across the district with IEP development and the delivery of services. So we're starting at the pre-K level. So Molly at Tanasoff is running all of our initial pre-K IEP meetings. So she's working with the consultant, and so we're going to start there and hopefully see more consistency with our services and our IEPs, with the understanding that every school has different needs, every child has different needs, but we want to see some overall consistency. And then we also are having, the outside consultant is working with our BCBAs to help to come up with a process for identifying students who need direct service consultation on their grid, or a student can be on a 504 and receive consultation from a BCBA, and kind of come up with a process and help to better identify who's in need and how those services are delivered. Because our two BCBAs are they're pulled in every direction, So, and then we have a district attendance committee that was developed this year. This committee came together with the goal of developing a district-wide plan in which consistent district-wide practices are identified at each tier. So we started by looking at attendance data and identifying those areas of need. Then we moved into the school, the representatives from each school worked together to identify tiered interventions that they use at each school. Then we identified those interventions that are successful currently. And the district leadership team also helped us to identify some of those interventions. And right now, the team is working on researching interventions that we can put in place that we haven't used, that are research-based, that have been successful, with the goal of, we have a lot of more work to do, but the goal is to finalize this plan. So we'll have consistent strategies at each tier that each school will be expected to implement at each tier. With that said, they can still implement other things for students, but these will be the district-wide strategies or interventions that we've identified as the most successful. And then, so we want to finalize that plan by the spring of '25, and hopefully with implementing it moving into next school year. And we're hoping that will help with our chronic absenteeism and with our students who are looking like they may experience or move into the area of chronic absenteeism. So that's what we've been up to.
Does anybody have any questions for Anna? Oh, sorry, Shannon. Anna on my mind.
You can ask Anna any questions too.
I just have two questions, if I could. One, the TLC program, is that going to be at all levels eventually, or is that something that you specifically were targeting, that elementary TLC review?
Yes, we will move forward to evaluate. We have to evaluate all of our special ed programs. So yeah, we started at the elementary, and then we'll move forward to evaluate each program at each level.
Okay. And this is, I guess, more of a request than anything else, but the school attendance program, if the rest of the committee is in agreement, I would love to have you come back and do just a quick overview on that, just what the outcome is. I'd love to see what the sort of district-wide plan is for that.
Absolutely. I've already asked the committee, and they said they would be willing to come in and present the plan.
Thank you.
So for sure. Thank you.
A question that I had on the student attendance committee, I know that probably the committee members are within the school, and I think we had a discussion about seeing if we could reach out to community members that might have ideas to engage the students that possibly will help them want to come back to school.
Absolutely. I love that idea, and I'm going to bring that back to the committee for sure.
Yeah,
Thank
because
you.
we have so many students and people in the community that would be willing to
Yes,
find out what engages that child and maybe getting them to be mentored in the school
yes,
might give them a reason to come back to school.
for sure. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any other question? Okay. The next item is the Student of the Month, and I will hand that to Erin.
So the Student of the Month is our favorite item on the agenda. The Student of the Month program was established in 2019 by the school committee to honor exemplary students. Nominations are collected throughout the year from staff members at all 5 schools. Nominations are made through 5 categories: service to fellow students, teachers, or community, dedication, determination, and persistence in the face of obstacles, attitude towards learning, determination, high achievement in academics, athletics, or performing arts, significant improvement in academics, athletics, or performing arts. Selections are made by the chair of the school committee, the superintendent, and 1 member of the policy and advocacy subcommittee. This month's honoree is Riley Coburn from Pine Grove School. She was nominated by Allison Harney. Can you both please come up? And Ms. Harney, can you tell us why you nominated Riley?
Hi, everybody. So as you know, I'm Allison Harney. I'm an IA at Pine Grove Elementary. Here's Riley Colburn. I just have a little short, something short and sweet to say that I wrote, and then I kind of shortened it just to say something a little bit about Riley. So in my short time of knowing Riley, I've come to learn how she truly cares for not just students, but also staff and teachers in the school. She is able to read the room and notice if a student or anybody is needing attention. And she asserts herself to be in a position where she might be most helpful. She even goes above and beyond to notice when teachers and staff members might be feeling a little bit off. I know she has come to me if I'm feeling a little just kind of like not great in my day, and I know my other colleagues can speak for that as well. And she'll go the extra mile to make his or her day, whether it's just cracking a joke or making a craft for them, something special, and it just really brings a smile to all of her faces. She continues to amaze me each and every day I learn something new about her every day, and I'm sure she learns something new about us every day. And yeah, I'm just so lucky to know Riley. So it's my honor to give her this nomination. And then if I could, I have one more, Mackenzie Parrott, who also has the pleasure of working with Riley, and she has a little something to say as well.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mackenzie Barrett. I'm an instructional assistant at Pine Grove School. I have the pleasure of working alongside Riley during the school day. Riley exemplifies kindness, helpfulness, and an energetic spirit in everything she does. Riley has consistently shown kindness to her peers, whether it's offering a smile, a kind word, or a helping hand. She always makes an effort to ensure everyone feels included and valued. Her empathy and compassion are truly inspiring. In addition to her kindness, Riley is always willing to help with whatever she can. She takes the initiative to assist her classmates with their work, volunteers for classroom tasks, and supports her teachers in any way possible. Her willingness to contribute positivity to our classroom environments is greatly appreciated. Moreover, Riley has a spunky personality that brings a vibrant energy to our classroom. Her enthusiasm and passion for learning is contagious, and she never hesitates to share her excitement with others. This spunkiness not only makes her a joy to be around, but it also motivates her peers to engage more actively in their own learning journeys. Overall, Riley is an exceptional student whose kindness, helpfulness, and spirited nature makes her a valuable member of our school community. I am confident that she will continue to make a positive impact in those around her. It is truly a joy to work with her.
Well, Brian, are you ready?
I get to weasel out of every picture.
Nicole, you're gonna get it in one way.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Taken 17 pictures. So I got a good one. Are you showing me or?
No,
Oh, okay. You were centering.
The next item is the superintendent's report.
Going on.
Okay, the next item is the superintendent's report. The superintendent will now give his report.
Thank you. So I will give you my some updates, and also, since I wrote this report, I have a hot off the press report from DESE that I can give you some further information. Haven't fully digested. I don't know if you have, Dr. Bates, but starting at the front, just some quick updates there for you. I won't read through them, but our Karen Cassidy, who is our career counselor, who lives over there on the far side of the library, just continues to do wonderful things for our students, bringing all types of incredible programs. Obviously, the MyCap program, which is a grant through the Department of Ed focusing on sophomores, but in general across the board for all grade levels, all students, really broadening the program and the experience that students have with starting to explore careers and vocations and interests. So thank you to her for that. Bus bid update, talk about that in a minute. District arts update, sorry. I did mention briefly to you that we were working on something last month. I can now confirm for you that on February 5th, all 4th through 6th graders will be coming over to have a full workshop day with high school students. So the buses will stay there in the morning after arrival. Kids will then load up, be back over here probably around 9:30. They will spend the day here. Our elementary cafeterias will send them with lunches. I believe we will have about 450 to 500 students eating lunch in the gym bleachers, which should be fun. So teachers will be coming over with all 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. Our high school arts educators as well as students will be performing to begin and then breaking out in workshops, a few concurrent and staggered workshops. For the rest of the time, we'll then get them back over to the schools back over there by 1:30, because then the buses need to be back here to do the first of 2 tiers for dismissal. So I'm thrilled for that. Thank you to Natalie Safley for the organization and all the arts teachers for making that happen. We're also working to make sure that the elementary instrumental and music teachers can be over here for the day with them as well. Big shout out. Hopefully you got to see The Lightning Thief, the Percy Jackson musical. Really well done, super fun, interesting story if you haven't read the book, but really well done. I got to see it on opening night, and then again to note that the students came over, 3rd through 4th, 5th, and 6th came over on that Friday after to see a preview of the show as well. Again, went well. And then a new item is that as part of an advanced acting class, there's a short production, and it is The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane. And so those students who do the production as well as the acting have produced this show. Part of this is organizing in a typical like theater company format. They're organizing for all the 2nd and 3rd graders to come over to see that show. And what was the date of that? I put the date, January 31st. So literally from the call that Brian usually gets to organize buses on down to the organization of students and everything. Students in that class are organizing that. So really thrilled to get, we know we've been focusing on those 4th, 5th, and 6th graders to get them over here and experiencing, but to get 2nd and 3rd graders over will be wonderful. So some great things happening there. MCAS, question 2. When I wrote this, we had no further guidance. As of about 5 o'clock today, we do have further guidance. I will send this to you. I haven't had a chance to read it in full, but the big question is, for anyone, does this take effect right away? The answer is yes. That has not changed from my report. The legislature did not act to overturn that law within 30 days of the vote. So election was November 5th. That became law on December 5th. The big question, obviously, is class of 25, students who are sitting here, one at the end of the table here, what is the requirement? So in the memorandum today, what clarified the key is, it is in effect for the class of 25. All students who have previously achieved the competency determination, which is a factor of coursework or an alternative path, as well as passing the MCAS. If they've achieved the competency determination, the CD, already, they're done. Through the November retakes, which have occurred, those would count towards achieving that competency determination and the graduation requirement, effective December 5th, which is retakes starting in January, or those can no longer be counted towards the competency determination. So not only is it not a requirement to graduate, it's not a path to graduate, if that makes sense. So there are, obviously there are students who struggle. It's a very small number of students who struggle to get to that finish line, but that takes away a pathway for them. So the discussion today, and again, very late in the day, was based on that, there is no reason to keep administering retakes. So it is an administrative task to make that happen, whether it be ordering and managing test materials on up through the administration during the day and getting those securely out. So at this point, I will come back and officially share with you, but our thinking as of an hour and a half, 2 hours ago, is it makes absolutely no sense to continue doing retakes when, as of December 5th, they don't mean anything. So that is just an update on the update. Is there anything else that you've learned that I missed?
I don't think so. It was a lengthy kind of memo to say that one thing.
Yeah. It's formatted as a Q&A, so there's a lot of questions. It's really the last question, I think, is the most important. Was it question 19?
19.
What is the impact of the new law on students who have not earned a CD before the date that the new law goes into effect? And the answer, as of the date the new law takes effect, students who have not yet earned the CD would be eligible to do so through quote, satisfactorily completing coursework that has been certified by the student's district, end quote. Guidance on certification will be forthcoming. So we have a law, and the department doesn't know what certified means. I would venture to say you have a policy. The policy derives the graduation requirements that are in the program of studies is where they're the most fleshed out, also in the student handbook. We have been going through an exercise of making sure that they're in perfect alignment. The program of studies is reflective of current. I think there's a couple tweaks we need to make to the policy, things that you've approved but didn't make it to the policy. So, you know, even on down to Carnegie units versus full 95 credits. So that will be forthcoming to the policy subcommittee, hopefully by January. But I would say you have a certified graduation requirement, and that is the standard by which, effective 6 days ago, the class of 2025 and all future classes will be held to. So one other thing to add, and this is a question, as we begin to, or continue to, I should say, prepare for the SQM surveys with UMass, one of the questions that was asked, we don't get great response with surveys, right? This is just the nature of the beast. A lot of times it's difficult to get feedback. Part of the work that they've done is making sure that folks who take the survey understand how rigorous the standards they use are, whether that be through data review or even the management and the development of the process. So their preference is that they deliver, if you will, the link to those respondents who are going to take the survey. For students, that's a little more difficult. So we would get a secure link. We would have students take that. Again, I should back up. This is happening the week of February 3rd to 7th. Students will be taking it at various times through the week of February 3rd through 7th. All staff will be taking it Friday, February 7th. Families will get a link delivered to them on Monday the 3rd and ask that they complete it by the 10th. So there'll be some messaging later this month and through January to prepare so that families are aware that's coming, because it's not, right, it's not a 30-second survey. It can take 20 to 30 minutes if folks really give us authentic and helpful feedback. So their preference for students is students enter a LACID, a local ID, strictly so that they can give us demographic information. We don't get any of the individual data back, but that allows us to break down data by gender, by race, by ethnicity, students with disabilities without. Similar with staff, we would give them a listing of individuals they would receive the survey directly. And then the same thing with families. We've been pretty reticent to provide that information. And in this case, it's literally an email address, not even with a name. But I think there's a value in that we can say, you are going to receive this link through UMass Amherst. That is all you're going to get. You submit the survey, it goes to them. We don't get any identifying information versus something that we send. I think there's just a kind of a message there that we somehow have that information. So I wanted to bring that. I was chatting with Linda and Narissa in our regular meetings and wanted to bring that to you just for some feedback, your thoughts, if there are any strong opinions, no real strong opinion, because those are the details that we're continuing to iron out over the course of this month so that we're ready to have that administered in February.
Does anybody have any questions? Concerns?
Thoughts?
Questions? Nothing? Okay.
No feedback? No opinions? Come on, people. I know we have
So you're saying
opinions.
that they'll just get the email and nothing will come to the district, and then UMass Amherst takes care of everything and expect?
Yeah, so I should say, the question I'm asking is whether whether I email families and say, here's the link, or they get I send a few emails and say, in my last email in a kind of a series of communications would be, next Monday, you're going to get an email from this address at UMass. That is the survey we've been talking about. If you submit that, we don't get any of the data in the individual, we get it in the aggregate. So that's the question I'm asking is whether I email the link or I provide email addresses to UMass, and they keep them secure, obviously, and families get that email link directly. or the survey link direct.
Ooh, that one's tricky.
I could argue both sides.
Right, because I think,
Well, what is your response rate when you do it?
I mean, it's been a while since we've done a survey, but our response rate is somewhere between miserable and not great.
Okay.
Are you saying that's me? Is that what the?
No, I said
Oh, okay,
that's
just checking.
fair. Like,
Okay,
I would
yeah.
expect that answer.
I know. Yeah, so, and I don't know, like, I don't know the answer, so all have parent or current parents, and I guess, would you receive that differently as a parent versus it coming from me?
So this is just like how are we, how about, I think about junk mail. I think about how often, I hate to say it, I even have to dig through emails that come from you that get bumped to my junk mail. That would be a concern of mine. And, I would be, let's say, someone working full-time, yes, they got your heads up, but I hate to say it, 2 days later, they're forgetting to look for it. I don't know. I think my concern, I don't know if it's just not from the district, if there's going to be even more lost.
Yeah, and I could even the day
Responses.
of, right, on Monday the 3rd, I could send, by 5 PM today, you will receive an email.
May I suggest that a phone call from you, such as like
do that.
when we have a snow day, might be more, like, seen as more important than,
My peanut gallery over here.
plus you're more entertaining
Yeah,
that way.
I could do a
Or just,
video.
I think that isn't, you say that, just my district, when they push something out, through the Remind app, I think, is how we get it, that through a text message or something, that might be worth it.
So if a message, a video,
Yeah.
phone call, text, whatever is
Yeah.
going, does that then make you feel like then that makes sense to have it come from UMass directly? Again, with explanation multiple times prior? Okay. And people will still opt out, right? Same thing with students. Students can opt out, staff can opt out. This is not a, yeah.
Can you include the email address that it's coming from so people know? Because the
Yes.
same thing that Kelly's saying, she said sometimes stuff ends up in her spam, but if I don't recognize the email address, I don't typically address it right away if I.
Yes. That is my understanding, is they will be able to give me the direct sender and the address it's being received from. Yes. Yep. Okay. Thank you. I'm done.
you have a bus bid update in the,
Oh, was that next on
that's in your report.
I skipped over that, and I was going to go back to it because you're going to vote on it.
It's later in the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure you didn't want to.
I'm going to make a motion to receive and file the monthly report for the superintendent of schools for December 2024.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? The next item is the policy section D edits. The Policy and Advocacy Subcommittee completed their scheduled review of section D of the policy manual last month and is recommending the attached amendments tonight for a second and final reading. Can you make a motion?
Make a motion to approve edits to the policy manual, section D, as presented as a second and final reading.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? The next item is the Transportation Contract Award. Superintendent Brian Forget is going to talk through the bids received for the transportation.
So you have in front of you, and I'm trying to find it and get it in front of me. There it is. We've been talking about this for a while. Our transportation contract was up. We have historically asked for committee approval for a 5-year contract by state law. I and Brian, as the signatories for the district, can execute a 3-year agreement. Anything in excess of 3 years requires a school committee vote. Just to be clear about the process, student transportation is governed by Massachusetts Chapter 30B, which is procurement law that is very restrictive. We can do what's called an RFP or a qualified response, where we evaluate and I won't go through the process. There are other processes for more in-depth. Generally, school bus transportation, it's pretty straightforward. There are vehicles, there are drivers, there are routes, there are stops. So it is expected that it falls under 30B. It's a sealed bid. There was a process that Brian followed, very strict timelines, registering and advertising through the state, locally. We have a bid when it becomes available. People request it. We had a pre-bid meeting. There was some questions asked, some clarifications. Some questions for bidders, smaller local and not real local bidders who came in looking at electrification of fleets and asking questions around our specifications had previously been pretty restrictive, requiring that the buses are housed within the district, extensive experience requirements, newer vehicle requirements. As a result of that conversation around the table, we actually issued an amendment, an addendum that answered some questions, some basic clarifying questions, but also relax some of those restrictions to make sure that we're going to get competitive bids from people that, right, we want to make sure that we're not being part of the problem of restricting vendors from being able to bid. We also want to make sure that we're not awarding a contract to someone or some company that doesn't have experience and wouldn't provide a good quality of service. So bids were opened on December 5th. That's last Thursday. Is that a lie? That's a lie.
Yeah, it's last Thursday.
That was last Thursday?
Yeah.
Wow, it's been a week. And so ultimately, literally, it's a date and time, Thursday, December 5th, 10 a.m., central office conference room. If the bid wasn't received before that time, or it didn't walk into the room before that door closed at 10 a.m., it can't be considered. Someone walks in at 10:03 with a bid, by law, we cannot consider it. So we did have one bid that arrived. It was dropped off a day or two before, and then our incumbent did walk in and had a bid with them. So the document that you have here is the summary. NRT is the incumbent, is owned by Beacon Mobility, national company, and then Coach Company, which, I forget the DBA. There's a DBA because they used to provide school transportation in the 70s and 80s. Here, locally, Newburyport, Triton, Pentucket, and a lot of that service ended up becoming Salter, which was bought by NRT, which is now bought by Beacon. So Coach is moving back into the school bus game. So they did submit a bid. But as you can see on that document, again, we are required by law to award the contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. Those terms are very important. Responsive is the quote in the bid that they submitted meets the specifications and everything we asked. So we needed a bid deposit of $50,000. We need, right, this whole list of the financials, the recommendations. The responsive is we checked every box. Literally, I read them, Brian checked the boxes, and we made sure that everything was there. So by the time we were done with that meeting and they got copies of everything, we knew both NRT and Coach were responsive. Responsible is track record, it's history, it's experience, it's references. So we are in the process of doing our due diligence now. We obviously, I've spent time doing a little research on Coach. They certainly seem reputable. As a company, Newburyport has good experience with them so far, but again, they have 4 months of history so far, so difficult to fully prove that out, but they certainly seem responsible. I would say for NRT, I've had several conversations. I have another follow-up conversation tomorrow with the vice president of the East Coast for Beacon Mobility. And I would say publicly, because we've talked about this, there are questions about the service, and I brought this to their attention. So the reality is we can rule a bidder out as non-responsible. It's supposed to go smoothly. It is supposed to be a decision by the awarding authority. That's not necessarily always how it plays out, right? The courts are there for a reason. So at this time, I would say to you, while I haven't yet checked fully the box and said NRT is responsible, I believe you're looking at numbers here where, again, the basis for the bid award is the collective bid, the 5 years. Year 1, 2, and 3, FY '26 through '28 is locked. We're locked to them, they're locked to us. Year 4 and 5, FY '29 and '30, that is crazy to see fiscal year '30 on paper. Those are option years at our sole discretion. We do also have there is a termination clause in the contract that is pretty pro-district. And that has been a point of the conversation so far with NRT. And the reality is now we know that there are other vendors in the area that could be in the ballpark. We have to date not exercised that because we know it would be incredibly disruptive. And not just for the man to my right, but for families, for students, it would be an incredibly disruptive season, we'll say. I don't know how long it would take to make that transition. But I'm not going to not exercise that in the future now that we have other players in the market. So again, I would say to you, my request would be that you vote to allow Brian to execute this contract, us to execute this contract once I check that final box and fully deem them as responsible. I think the law allows the successful low bidder, we can further negotiate with a successful low bidder. If a bidder is ruled out and disqualified, you then look at the next lowest bidder. We have two bidders, so obviously if one was ruled out, the other would be the low bidder. There is some question as to whether that then I can legally negotiate with a new low bidder that was previously the high bidder, and it certainly opens up considerable legal questions and opportunity for challenge. On paper, you can see bid Form A, which is the majority of this, is the regular day busing. The 5-year total for NRT is $8.83 million. The 5-year total for Coach Company is $9.55 million. Over bid Form B, which ends up being all of the late runs and athletics and field trips, and there's just an assumption we have in there that tallies in. So you can see ultimately the difference in cost is 9.7 or just about 9.37 or just about 9.4 million as compared to just about 10.2 million. So there's an $800,000 difference between the two. It would be a very different discussion about talking who's responsible and not responsible if those numbers looked a heck of a lot closer. We're about to embark in a budget season that I don't think it's going to be horrific, but I don't think it's going to be oh great, here we go, we're going to do some restoration, and we're certainly going to be talking about how we maintain level services as compared to how we start doing, restoring positions and things like that. So every dollar is going to count, and even if that could be negotiated, the number is roughly $170,000 per year. If it could be negotiated to 50, 60, 70,000, that would still be money that we're going to need in other areas. So at this point, my estimation is I am, after a little more, Brian says we just need to do it, but there's a couple more things I want to check. Once they're deemed responsible, that I would say your vote to award the contract to North Reading Transportation.
Could I have a motion?
Do you want a discussion first?
Oh, yeah, we can have a discussion.
Just thought that people might have something to say.
Anybody have a discussion? Well, I figured that we'd vote and then discussion. But, no, when I say any discussion. Any discussion? I mean, I think we're between a rock and a hard place.
Well, I'm just wondering, do you think the disruption in service is worth $162,000 per year? So the issues that we're currently, I guess that would be the question, like, is there any upside to paying that large amount of money per year to move into a different direction? Because I don't see it. Like, I know there's disruptions and there's issues in NRT. There's been problems.
Yeah, the majority, I would
But
say.
are they
the-
$162,000 per year worth of problems?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely places that the folks to my right and the principals would be screaming about other places where we need to be spending money. Is it a disruption? Absolutely. The biggest piece is staffing, right? And it's not, the transportation industry isn't immune to it. An upside of this is the current driver rate is in that 27 to 28.9 range. This bid from NRT resets the floor at 32 an hour. So that certainly, we're not a prevailing wage district. It's a weird little nuance because there isn't a MBTA terminal in Byfield, which is where the district is, even though Rowley. So we're not subject to prevailing wage rates, but that's getting more towards a prevailing wage rate, which has been a challenge when out of that same terminal, they're running Mascobot, Tri-Town, Somersworth, New Hampshire, somewhere else, that are prevailing wage districts, and a driver can leave our runs to go make $5, $6, $7 an hour more. So there are definitely things in this bid that suggest that that won't be as much of an issue, because there will be a better, they have promised we will have 21 drivers. So again, right now we have 221, we have 19 drivers. We have said all along, right, the budget carries 21. They haven't been able to fill them. The goal initially is substitutes. The 19 drivers is hard, specifically for Newbury and Rowley. Those runs are a little too crunched. Newbury is okay. Did I say Salisbury and Rowley? Salisbury and Rowley. Sorry, Newbury is okay. We need one more run in each of Newbury and Rowley for both secondary and elementary.
Salisbury.
I'm sorry. Do you know what I'm saying? Salisbury and Rowley. Newbury's good. Long day. But the more pressing need is it's not every day anymore, but the frequent consolidation of routes, the doubling back, right? We can't even consolidate anymore because they're already so stacked that they're running it and then going back out. That's happened fairly, I would say regularly, but all too common at both Pine Grove and Salisbury Elementary. And you have students who are 20, 30 minutes late to school. So there is a promise with this that will end. And so my conversation tomorrow will hopefully give me the confidence in that, because I would say publicly I don't have it right now. So I think there is the potential in this bid, and even the fact that we had multiple bidders at the table competing, that put companies on notice, right? The reality is you have to be able to perform to keep in the business. So I don't know if that answered your question in a very long-winded way.
No, it's the same thought process. It's just, there's been recently, students are standing on the side of the road. So whenever we talk about budget, there's that, is there a way to bridge that gap with providing a reliable service to our students that are standing on the side of the road or waiting in inclement weather and then being late for school, so it's disruptive through the rest of the day. So when you think of it's not a small problem, but also $162,000 a year to be taken away from other places. So I was just wondering if there was any way to kind of bridge that with NRT. But as you said, you're trying. So
Trying.
It's one of those hard things because it's not on you. You can't control that. But that was my major kind of question. I don't want to ignore the concern that the busing isn't working perfectly for our students.
There aren't many times I would say, gosh, I wish we owned and ran our own buses. Now's the time I would say that. Kind of hard to make that happen all of a sudden, but you might disagree.
Is there any other questions?
Ask a question. Is there a possibility to put an improvement plan into the contract?
Say more?
Like where it has steps to say,
Requirements?
we need to see this fixed by this date? Like this is the expectation, right? That we have 19 drivers, regular drivers, and whatever the number is, 3 substitutes assigned to our routes hired and, trained and assigned to our routes by this day?
I can find that out. I don't know if, I imagine if two entities want to sign a contract, we can pretty much be creative unless it breaks the law. I would say the termination clause in the contract, again, is pretty robust. And this contract says you'll provide 21 runs.
Okay.
Right, it says you'll provide door-to-door service on time. I mean, it's some pretty basic things that we know are absolutely not happening. So I think that rather than putting, that would be a battle, I would imagine, if I was the vendor wanting to sign that versus I've got the clause and we're just now we're gonna execute it.
Okay.
Yeah, and put them on notice that that's
Yeah.
publicly and privately, that is, we will pursue that.
Yeah, I think I would feel, I think I'm thinking along the same line as Caitlin, right? We need to see improvement. It's also very hard to look at those numbers and rationalize them when we know we're getting possibly, a very significant healthcare increase this year. So I just wonder if there's a way to put in there either a set of expectations or separately set out a set of expectations, even if they're not sort of in the contract, but this is what we expect from you, or is it possible to put in there I know they don't pay for runs that they don't run, but an actual financial penalty to say, you don't run this route that you're expected to run, and set that number at 19 if it needs to be, right? With the idea that we're incentivizing them to get subs instead of those additional drivers right away. This is the amount that you're taking, you're actually crediting off of our payments for our other runs. I just think we need, we're in a scenario financially, but we need to sort of put as many carrots and sticks into that contract to get these improvements that we know we need as we can.
Yeah, I don't have an answer. I like that. And we have to do some due diligence to see what we can and can't put in. My guess is a lot of that we would legally be able to put in. Yeah, so I guess the question is, so we're supposed to award a contract. It says we will endeavor to award a contract within 30 days. If you weren't comfortable awarding, we could reach out and say, we're not going to be prepared to offer a contract within 30 days. It's going to take until the January, 8th? Right, it's not the week we get back, so it's the 8th. If you wanted to see a little more, see a contract, see stronger language.
Do you have to do a 3-year contract?
A 5-year, you mean? So,
Well, the other two are optional, but
so it's technically, you're voting, we can execute a 3, you have to vote on a 5. I think the option years keep things in check, and if they don't work out.
now, because I was just thinking, because they haven't fulfilled the contract over the last few years.
Yeah, we're not obligated to award a contract.
No, I understand that.
Yeah, we could
but-
go rebid, we could go,
But to say, we're going to look at this after this year, to look at it, to say.
oh, you say doing less than that?
Right, to say, because you haven't had a very good track record, we want to we'll vote you this 1 year with all these conditions in it, and see if you're meeting what we have in our contract. Because right now, they're not meeting what's in our
Correct, yeah.
contract.
Yep.
So right out of the gate, you could say, we're done with you. So, even to add that, where we only want a 1 or a 2-year contract and not a 5, because.
Yeah, I will have to check on that. I'm not sure if you advertise as a 5-year, can pull it back to a 1-year without considering that a change, but we could look at that too. Yeah.
Because that would rarely put them on notice.
Yeah.
It might, but the other concern is they knew they were bidding against someone this year, which I'm going to expect probably affected where their bid came in. If nobody comes to a pre-bid meeting on the next time you bid it, you may not have that upper hand. Like if you're doing it every year, right?
Yeah, I do. So, right, so this increases our budget by in the vicinity of 230,000. We were talking about this could be 500,000, 600,000. Coaches' bid would increase our budget by 400,000. that was with two fierce competitors, shared employees, sitting at the table. I want to assume that coach is going to stay in this and keep coming back, and maybe there's others, but I don't know. So I do think at a minimum it makes sense to lock in a contract, knowing that we're able to walk away in that termination clause for failure to perform. If we can put even more teeth in it, that makes that even more clear, whether that's kind of deliverables along the way with hard timelines or just performance standards, really outlining those performance standards very explicitly. On-time service, no kids on the side of road, no crying.
Any other questions? Can we have a motion?
Yeah.
I would actually love to see the contract before we, whatever it looks like in the end.
Okay.
That's just my personal opinion, if somebody else wants to make a motion, but I know people usually look at me to do that, and I'm not ready to do that.
Yeah, I was just saying, I'm pretty 100% almost confident that we can do that, because it's not there was no language that the contract will be executed within 30 days or, this whole bid is null and void. It was approaching that, so if we reach out and say, we don't have a committee vote again, and we didn't have all our due diligence done, I don't think they're going to run away if we need an extra couple of weeks, and we can bring it back to the January 8th meeting. You can take a vote to that, or if you just want, I'm happy to just pull it and say, we'll bring it back on January 8th.
Yeah.
I'm hearing
pull
that
it.
people would rather see more and hear more.
I agree with Narissa. I think when we're going into budget season, and these aren't small dollars, and to give them more time and possibly not make changes. So I would rather see like what we can put in there that allows for those changes to kind of forced upon them in a quicker way than saying like year 4 is optional. That gives them 3 more years to provide similar service to what they've been doing now before we, so I would just, I agree with Narissa. I think if we can try to add in something that incentivizes a quicker change and then let us see that contract, so we're kind of, everyone's eyes are wide open.
Yeah?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
The next item is the Facility Subcommittee report. As you have all heard, there's a lot of action happening right now with facilities. Matt Landers, the chair of Facilities Subcommittee, has prepared a presentation on the work that the subcommittee finished on an alternative plan, and he will take us through that. But as you all know now, Triton has been asked to have representatives attended the MSBA meeting on Friday, where there will be a vote, hopefully a positive one, on inviting the district into a partnership to look at a project for this campus. We have also invited our 3 select chairs to be there as well. Since the advance word on that vote reached the district prior to the last facility subcommittee meeting, I asked the subcommittee to consider a recommendation on whether to explore the likely MSBA partnership or the alternative non-MSBA plan. Matt will also be providing that recommendation prior to the board's discussion. I'll hand this to you now, Matt.
Thank you. And I'm just presenting as the chair. If Narissa or Caitlin especially want to jump in, please feel free to if I miss anything. So just a quick overview of the subcommittee. We established the subcommittee on January 10th, and we were made up of 3 school committee members and 3 members from, a representative from each of the member towns. Also Brian and John and the principals were also part of the meetings to give us background. We set up, our goal was to produce a Plan B should we not be accepted into the MSBA in December, and then subsequently the subcommittee recommended and subsequently the full committee approved hiring Habib & Associates for design services in April. We toured the campus, which was probably the funnest part. We came up with, what?
Wow.
It definitely was. The roof?
Okay, the roof was fun.
Definitely.
Expansive.
I got to see all the patches that we've done over the years, which we are doing. Our goals were to provide a 50-year solution which updates the building envelope, which was the biggest priority, and all the systems, as well as building security, bringing all the classrooms into the building, providing a single point of access, and limiting public access during events. Improve the student flow and efficiencies, and have the central office in the middle and high school. Having a central middle and high school office, eliminating unused space in the second story of this room in particular, the library, and improve and upgrading the building finishes and furnishings, improving the educational spaces where possible, but placing priority on basic updates, ceiling, lighting, flooring, paint, etc. And then if you want to go to the next slide, I can walk you through the plan. This is what we came up with. So if you start at this is the main level. Can you use your pointer to point? Just sorry. Thank you very much. So this is the main level. The first part there is a new lobby area that would be an addition. That would be 2 stories. And that's in front of the auditorium. And then you have a security vestibule that actually isn't on that plan. Oh, it's right there. Yeah, sorry. I got to get my eyes checked. And that would become the main point of access for both the middle and the high school. And adjacent to that would be a small addition with the high school and middle school offices. And they would be combined, as I said. And then the district administration offices would remain in the same area, but because we got rid of the high school office, we would be able to add, I think there's 5 staff members in a different office, annex.
There's a room in the middle school. We've got John across the hall. We've got people kind of scattered around, so it would bring them all back.
Bring them everyone into that same office. And then you have the nurse's office right there. And then, there's a bathroom.
The restroom.
Yeah.
And these are stairs to go downstairs.
Down to, yeah, and then you have, we brought the high school media center, which is the library. We infilled the second floor, and we added it there. If you can point to that.
And this becomes the nurse's office.
Then the nurse has been relocated right to the corner of the high school media center. And then the administrative offices that were located in the middle school, which is to the bottom of there, now have become the library, and that would be the correct space size for that library, which it is currently not. It's undersized. And then you have the stairs from the lobby down to here. And if you want to go to the next slide. And that would allow you to come down to a multi-purpose room, which we've made the library into. We've added the broadcast studio, which is currently outside the building, media lab, and a makerspace. On the northeast side of the building, those red rooms, those are the science labs. We would be resizing them to get to the standard, which is around 1,440 feet.
Just as a point of reference, you're sitting right here.
Yeah, I skipped ahead. I didn't talk. Can you go back? Sorry. Can you just point out the stairs?
Right here.
So there's a grade difference. No, the other side.
Here?
Yep, there's a grade difference right now between what is basically the front entrance and that hallway. It's about 7 feet. So those stairs would serve 2 purposes. They're bleachers that would get, and they're also stairs to get you up to that middle school and high school gym. There would be 2 new doors, and the middle school could access the gym without having to go all the way around, which they currently have to do. And there's also an elevator for accessible access. You can go back to the bottom floor, sorry.
Hang on a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say real quick, one of the things that we talked about was security during events. So that dashed purple line there that looks kind of funky, that's actually the line where the building could get locked down specific to events, so that as we have the general public in the building, without them being quarried, raptored, and everything else like that for basketball games and goodness concerts and everything else, they don't have access to academic spaces and things like that.
And so if this is the main level, if you go to the lower level down that staircase, you then have access to these spaces. And then again, the cafeteria. So the cafeteria doesn't move, but it allows restricted access to just the cafeteria. And we should say too, the cafeteria, we talked a lot about finding ways to get it into this general kind of flow. It just become without a rebuilding a building. That's the type of thing where it ends up being far more cost effective to build new than try and relocate because of all of the things that happen with a kitchen. So
Also, those yellow rooms there, the TLC and the 18 to 22, those were moved there. It's currently a middle school music and a locker room.
Yep.
The idea was to move the locker room to where the broadcast studio is now, the outbuilding. And then you have the art rooms that were relocated because we put the lobby there. If you want to go to, skip two head, you have the security. And then here you have a second story in the lobby. It'd be a second story office area. That lobby area is going to be the same height as the current middle school, so that we have one roof height. It helps us with flashing and things like that. And then the old library and that annex become new classrooms. And we also have a updated science lab right there for the middle school.
I was going to say, so the kind of the genesis of the flow was, this was a priority, right? It's about the security and access and flow, which this building is very spread out, as you all know. Splitting the library media in half, you can see that big concrete slab, and we have 2 stories then. And then the rest of everything else with the moves was kind of just moving and tucking, where can we put this? This got displaced. So that was really the genesis, was looking to keep this as cost-effective as possible, not over-designing and not really even over-updating. There was a lot of this building that was literally just painted when the renovation happened in the late 90s, when the middle school was built. And we at least need to make sure everything is updated and new. So all of these spaces that don't have a color in them, the assumption is, as you had shared on that earlier slide, it's new flooring, new ceilings, new windows, new lighting, right, new paint, but it's not changing the construct of the classrooms, it's not changing the size, it's not changing windows.
So you want to move to the next?
You're not changing windows?
I'm sorry, not changing window locations.
Oh.
So any window that exists, it's replaced.
What about we had at one point in time talked about that big open space as you're coming between the gym and the access door. Is this assuming, is that high school admin, middle school, is that a new build?
So
Footprint exactly the same? Okay, that's what I was.
That lobby and then high school, middle school, that's a small addition.
Yeah, so this is the entrance to the high school gym. This wall is actually here. These are currently art rooms and the nurses' room. So this actually becomes a new lobby, wide open area. This is the T's, rather than having, I want to point with my finger so bad, rather than having the stairs here and here, it creates like a grand stair that can be like a bleacher for assemblies and things right there in the lobby area, but it's also the steps up to get to the main gym level. So you go up that area, and then this is a hallway that's behind the auditorium, those restrooms behind the gym and the 2 gyms. And then you still would step down here, down to this side.
And obviously, it's named 7.1, so this is the 8th version. Spent a lot of time going through this and thinking about everything.
Yeah, and again, I mean, to say it, this does not solve all the problems, right? This is the kind of main areas we focused on. It's about security, it's about flow, it's about getting as best an upgrade to the educational spaces as we can, right? So this is not rethinking educational spaces outside of giving us a few new creative areas by splitting this into 2 levels, but it ends up adding square footage.
So if you want to move to the next slide, this is the overall estimate, which it came up to 172 million. And again, that's not a gut renovation like Pine Grove. That's basically painting, classrooms, new ceiling, very limited upgrades.
And we should say a couple more times, this is a conceptual, he's got it right here. In a designer's world, there's schematic design and then building level design. This isn't even a schematic, right? This is a concept. So when we're talking about these estimates here, these are ballpark figures assumed on square feet. Excuse me. So outside of counting how many windows and assuming it's, I don't know the number, I'm making it up, $5,000 to replace a window for the product and the labor and, resealing it, that's how these numbers are arrived at. If we're welcomed in on Friday to the MSBA, part of that study, the feasibility into schematic, is significantly greater detail down to the actual design, redesign, and costing out room by room, square foot by square foot, item by item. That is not this.
So based on that 172 million, you can move to the next slide, or actually 2 slides ahead. That's just the breakdown. The subcommittee recommends that we partner with the MSBA on a core project if chosen to be welcomed into eligibility. Partnering with the MSBA will allow us to make upgrades that are not included within the Plan B project scope. MSBA project will allow us to reimagine all of our educational spaces. With the MSBA, we will be able to explore all our options to ensure that we have the most economical solution for the member towns. We received notice on Friday, December 6th, as mentioned, that we were officially placed on December 13th, which is a Friday, agenda for consideration. You can move on to the next one. Just to dispel any concerns, this work was very valuable and it was money well spent, because if we're welcomed into eligibility, we're going to have to explore all options, and this is basically the framework for those options. We have all that ready to go. And we have, the facilities assessment that we spent a lot of money on, that's very important to this next process. So we're ahead of the game, in my opinion.
I will say in my conversations with Diane Sullivan from the MSBA, whether it be through the application process over the past 3 years, or more recently with the readiness call that I received, I guess 2 weeks ago now, and the readiness call was not a test, but it felt an awful lot like, tell me what you've been doing to get ready for this. Are you really ready? And in talking through what we've done with Diane, she was very clear to say, if you're welcomed in, don't forego that thinking, right? Don't think that all of that, of course, this isn't going to be the plan, but all of that thinking you did, let that inform your study, and so that you're over designing the Cadillac. The MSBA doesn't want to partner, and just because the MSBA is paying half, over design a building. So that's important, that both for our local taxpayers and our partnership with the MSBA, if we're welcomed in on Friday, that this work that we did took us through a lot of thought around what we need, what we don't need, what we want, and what we really need. And I think it's going to be important to share, and there's been discussions with town officials that, like, our promise is not to just go out and over-design a building and think that our towns are going to be able to support it. We can't answer the question. If that's a yes on Friday, we can't answer the question, is it a knockdown rebuild? Is it a renovation? Is it a partial renovation, partial new? Right? That all has to be studied. We don't get to make that choice. But even in my conversations with Diane, she said, right, that can be informed. If you right away already know that there's no other option in an area, in a location, we're going to listen to that. We're not going to make you study something that isn't on the table. So all of this work is certainly, we spent $29,990 on this second phase, and it was kind of more like $90,000 back in 2019 when we did that full assessment. And that's all really, really well spent money to get us where we are today, both in our thinking and in our conversations with our member towns. So.
Yeah, and also, I didn't mention this, but the MSBA will give us the biggest bang for our buck, because we're figuring, these are rough numbers, guesstimates, basically, a new building or another full renovation will be in somewhere around $250 million, and we should get a third from the MSBA conservatively. Mm-hmm. So that will put us underneath. Oh, you don't like that? I'm sorry.
No, I'm just going to say, those are Matt's numbers. That's not something we've discussed in the subcommittee.
I absolutely said that, but that's where my personal thinking is. And I don't think I'm horribly off, but.
I mean, the rough figures are, the assumption is around $1,000 a square foot. That is the discussion of what the going rate is. That doesn't mean bids wouldn't come in lower than that. Based on our enrollment, we can assume we're in a building around 200,000 square feet. It's currently 286,000, so a partnership with the MSBA would not allow us to keep a lot of square footage that exists now unless it's non-reimbursable. Some of that may be We like the auditorium. They wouldn't give us a huge auditorium. We keep the auditorium, and that becomes local. So it doesn't have to be this, it's all or nothing, all big, all brand new, just keep it in reno. All of those options are on the table. If we're welcomed in on Friday. We're talking like it's a done deal. Be much better on Friday afternoon once we know. You can stop talking in hypotheticals.
And then the last slide is just the comments from the town representative. I can read them if you'd like.
You can reenact them.
What? You can read them? Oh, you can read them on the screen. Yeah, okay, perfect. All right. I'm done talking for the year. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions?
I'd just like to thank Matt and the rest of the subcommittee for this work. I think in talking about something this big and with this many moving parts, it's really helpful for me to have this groundwork, and it's much easier for, I guess I view it as, it's easier to make edits in my mind than to just draw on a blank page. And so this is a really helpful piece of work, and I think you guys have done a great job with it. So thank you for everything and the time spent.
Thank you. And I just want to say, too, I think this was my own personal thinking, not something necessarily that the subcommittee talked about, but part of the benefit that I see in the MSBA is not just financial and sort of the structure that you exist within and how that sort of makes you, holds you accountable. But I think also, looking at this alternative was an exercise that was not fully informed. I mean, we as committee members know the things that we've been hearing from families, from students over the years, but we weren't in a situation where we could go out beyond the work that Habib had done way back when and sort of go to the Owens and say, where are the pain points that you're feeling now? Go to the staff members and say, where there are many, many things that I'm sure we did not consider because we couldn't. We didn't have that luxury. We were looking at essentially, how do you take the building as it exists today, the known problems that have just bubbled to the top over and over and over again throughout the years, and sort of address those in the least expensive way in the structure that we have today, or as close to it as you can get. And I think that does a disservice. It's something that we heard from Principal Kelly about to a degree over the entire duration of all of our conversations, was just that, we're not looking at everything. We were looking at sort of the little box that we were allowing ourselves to function in. And I think having the MSBA gives a partnership would give us the opportunity to kind of go out and solicit broader feedback. It would allow us to have more brains in the game, because a school building committee has to have all these people who are having input on it, rather than, three of us with Mike and Christine and Alicia and the district administrators that were there. I just think it really allows us to go through and try to find not just a solution to keep the building going for 50 more years, but to having a real 50-year solution for Triton.
Click the slide. In that overall design, it's all based off of a percentage of the construction cost. It's carrying $9.7 million for more engineering and designing. So there's a lot of unknowns that would take this from this concept to doing what you're doing. So even if we were going to do this locally, it could end up looking nothing like this, because at the end of the day, the question that the subcommittee was charged with was, what would it cost in rough figures to provide a solution that meets these basic needs? And we know it's $172 million, and there's not a lot, right, that changed. So I think that was the achievement, was we now know that to not partner with the MSBA means that any rethinking is off the table, most likely, right? Things can change, but it's almost definitely off the table. Whereas we might be able to rethink creatively in some combination that allows us to both rethink and maximize that reimbursement and get that 172 way lower.
And when you're looking at the 172, when you start opening walls and doing different things, that 172 may rise higher and still be on our dime if we were doing it locally. So we're saying 172, but you haven't even broke open anything to find out what's behind everything. I want to thank Matt and Caitlin and our select board for being part of this, because it really opens your eyes to a lot of things that are needed at Triton. And I know we have to be mindful as best we can to making sure that number doesn't go higher than 172, and the only way we can do that is to go with the MSBA.
I will say too, just to make sure it's clear, in a partnership with the MSBA, there are 2 reimbursement periods. So there's, in the feasibility study phase, there is a reimbursement so that part of those costs are also reimbursed to us. So we know we have just shy of $1.67 million in our stabilization account. If it ends up costing 1.8 million and it's a 50-50 split, it ends up costing us $900,000 to do that study. So we've been talking through the logistics and the mechanics of how that would work, like a lot of hypotheticals, and we hope they vote yes on Friday. But that would answer the question that we've had about what about the, oh my gosh, look what just happened to the roof moments when we have these type of windy days and you see it start to flap, right? These fixes are not $10,000, $5,000. They're in the $50,000 and $100,000 range. So we'll have to work through the mechanics of that, but that is a considerable benefit to be able to study and have them partner. They would reset the rate, and it could potentially go higher based on other factors, the design. Are we going to use total renewable energies, geothermal, right? All those things that get you extra bonus points, and the points are percentage. So when you're talking about a $200 million building, if we install other, point garnering things, we can increase the reimbursement that the district gets. Ultimately, that's a net savings to the town. So that can also work the wrong way, and it costs more to put them in than you get in savings, and then it's not a wise investment.
And I know that this was a lot of time and effort on everybody, but it was well worth that time and effort to put in.
Yeah.
Something else.
I was just going to make one more comment, which I think was to something that Mike Colburn said during our last facilities meeting, which, and I think you just said it as well, that if we find that the MSBA route isn't working for us, we have the option to bail, right? It's all these different modules, and every single module, you sort of have to say, yep, we're ready to move on. If at some point we feel like we're not moving toward a better solution than what we've worked on here, we can just bail, essentially. I can't imagine getting to that point, but we do have that as a fallback if we happen to need it at some point down the road. Like I said, can't imagine getting there. But.
Yeah, there's multiple votes. So the vote on Friday would welcome us into eligibility. I was wrong, I think I said this last month, that I thought you then had to go back for a vote to kick off the eligibility period. They actually phase you. And so we've been told that if we're welcomed in, we would be phased early. And after that eligibility period, which is establishing the building committee, confirming our enrollment, an agreed enrollment that becomes the basis for the size of the building, funding agreements. Obviously, the huge issue usually is towns have to secure that funding through an override for the feasibility. We don't have to do that, so we can hopefully do that quickly. There's another vote to welcome into feasibility. The second half of that is a vote into schematic, and then from schematic, it's the big one, right? That's when we then would have a preferred schematic design that we're saying this is costed to a level that we can say this is roughly the budget, and that's what we would end up taking to taxpayers. So in my preparation, what was it called, readiness call, the statement that Diane made is typically districts are bringing a project to vote 3 years from acceptance. So that would be December of '27. In talking through the phasing with her, things like we don't have to wait for a town meeting to get feasibility. There are certainly things that could potentially, that could be earlier, maybe a spring meeting of '27. And if you look at this time frame, part of the impetus of this discussion was we can't wait for the MSBA. We don't have time. Certainly, having the MSBA pay for half of the feasibility helps leave a little money in our coffers. But also, the construction start was assumed in June of '27 and done by June of '29. At this point, if we are bringing a vote in June or call it spring of '27, and again, that's aggressive, that's pushing, but possible, we would likely be doing construction by late '27, early '28, and so we're at that point only 6 months behind what this envisioned as Kevin took us through this project. So.
I guess I'd ask first, what are the thoughts of the folks that weren't on the facilities subcommittee? Because this is a big decision point for us. I think we know where the facilities subcommittee sits, and we have been so fortunate to have town input on this the entire way through. And we know that they were essentially sitting on that same side. I know for sure, like Alicia had to drop off early for that call, so she didn't actually get to put in any formal,
Recommendation.
Yeah, recommendation or opinion, but I know there's been discussion in between with her, so, we know that all 3 towns are headed in the same direction with us, but that doesn't necessarily, we're 3 members out of a 9-member subcommittee who actually have to vote on this, so.
I agree with what you said. Like, this plan looks like we are saving the building for 50 years plan, but if partnering with the MSBA says now we have a good building that we're proud of the changes that we've made for 50 years as well, that's a huge difference. And I'd rather the towns be spending that money on a building that we can be proud of the new facility we have, like Rowley is proud of that Pine Grove facility, then, well, we repaired it and now it will hold up.
Anybody else have any questions, concerns, comments? And again, if going through this process, we feel that the amount of money is getting out of control and that we want to switch to this, we do have that option at any point in the module movement.
And can I just say, we wouldn't have to pull away from a partnership with the MSBA. We would just have to start value engineering, right? So it's not that, if it ended up being just a renovation, that doesn't mean we couldn't partner with the MSBA. Right. There are certainly spaces like the classrooms that wouldn't meet the specs and so it wouldn't be reimbursable. So it's harder, but it's not just we have to walk away from the MSBA. The recommended action is to take a vote. There is no formal vote required. This is totally performative, but at the same token, right, when we submitted our statement of interest, our 3 boards of selectmen, our select boards, took a vote. They didn't have to, they did, and we were able to say in our statement of interest, our select boards are on board with us. The committee's on board. The fact that if the MSBA board votes on Friday, and there's no further vote, we are literally, if we get chunked in that first phase in February, we are off to the races on February 3rd, and there's no other opportunity for the committee to say, yeah, we chose this. So that's where I thought it made sense. When we were talking through, it made sense to just take another vote to say, yeah, if we get the yes on Friday, we're all in. We were already all in, and we were doing our due diligence, but reconfirming, we're all in.
I know, but this board has always been that we're in this together, so any decision that's made has to be at least that's the way I always feel about it, is the 9 of us have to make that decision together. It's not me or Narissa or Brian making those decisions. We each have to go to our constituents, and with each one of us, we say we did it as a collective group.
Ready for a motion?
Yes.
I make a motion to confirm the committee's intention, provided that the MSBA extends an invitation to the Triton Regional School District to partner on the middle school, high school campus program in the core program on Friday, December 13th, 2024, to move forward with an MSBA partnership.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
I want to vote too, yes. Just saying.
The next item is the subcommittee reports, policy and advocacy, Paul Goldner.
Hey, we met earlier this evening. We continued reviewing policy section E. We also had a discussion about the student of the month with 2 of our school buildings having now internal student of the month, thinking about sort of a formative discussion of are we going to adapt what we're doing or continue on course. And we will be continuing that discussion next month as well. Our next meeting is January 8th, 2025, which sounds very bizarre, at 5:30 in the summer.
Thank you, Paul. Finance, Paul Mayette.
Our biggest note is that the budget continues to be tight. We're not yet, right, we're still not yet, it was a while back, in a spending freeze. But are monitoring the status of things very closely, and our next meeting is on the 19th.
Personnel and negotiations, Matt.
We met on November 18th with the PEC Healthcare Group to continue working on our healthcare.
We are meeting Monday.
Oh, yeah, sorry. We have a meeting Monday.
Thank you, Matt. As you see with our subcommittees, as well as the additional facilities committees, the school committee does do a lot of work behind the scenes. We've divided up these subcommittees to make sure that we do all the work that the school committee needs to do. I'm thankful for our towns to be always working with us whenever we ask them. They've been a huge part of the facilities committee. I want to thank everybody. I mean, what we do here, it takes a village to do what we do, and I appreciate everything that everybody does. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Making a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll second.
Any discussion other than everybody have a happy, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa? All those in favor? Have a nice day.